For a long time now, I've been hearing people complain about hackers in Nuclear Winter. After witnessing a recent string of people swear off of the mode until all the hackers are gone, I decided to start looking into the matter myself, jumping in game to see how prevalent the issue was, and work out just what effect it was having on the mode. Before we properly get into the video, I want to go over a few things, just to make sure we're all on the same page. This video is not a hit piece. I'm not going to be targeting anyone in particular, nor will I be naming any names. I'm not trying to start a witch hunt here, instead I'm much more focused about opening up a discourse in which we can all engage and taking an objective look at the issue. I'll be using a wide variety of clips from Nuclear Winter in this video. If I'm spectating someone in a clip, that doesn't necessarily mean they were hacking. It just means I decided to watch them and have included that footage in the video, probably because I think it's an interesting clip to watch more than anything else. Finally, I'll be using a bit of a mix of old and new Nuclear Winter footage. Once again, this is just to keep the footage varied and interesting. Otherwise, you'd be watching me crouch run without encountering anyone for about half this video. With that out of the way, let's get into the real meat of the topic. How prevalent is hacking in Nuclear Winter? That's the real question we need to be focusing on here. After all, it's best not to just assume one way or another without at least trying to get a decent read on it all. Problem here is that working out if someone is hacking or not can be a little tricky. If somebody one-shot kills you from the other side of a map with a pipe pistol, then yeah, you can probably safely say they're hacking. If you're in a close-range firefight and the other player fires a scope lever action once whilst jumping and downs you straight away, then you might think they're using an aimbot, but it could have also just been a lucky shot. I actually have an example of sorts of this, where a player sneaks up on me, starts shooting, and I get a couple of lucky close-range no-scopes off at them with the lever action, killing them despite the fact they should have really won that fight. From my footage you can clearly see that I'm not hacking, but put yourself in the other player's shoes. They were about to kill me, and at that moment, I just so happened to land a no-scope headshot with a weapon that's not designed for hipfire. Well, they might be a tad suspicious, especially if they've been hearing that hackers are present in Nuclear Winter. This is when you have to realise that to truly tell if someone is hacking or not, you generally have to watch them for a real long time, something which I couldn't do much of in my play session earlier this week. I was playing for 5 hours, and in that time I became suspicious of plenty of players, but I'd by no means be sure enough to say any of them were definitely hacking. On the lesser side of things were a couple of players who just seemed to get some lucky headshot kills, and on the most extreme side of it, were players who seemed to be able to down anyone in a couple of seconds, and always knew where to look. Even in that case though, it wasn't enough for me to condemn them as a hacker. Sometimes players do just get really lucky, have high skill levels, and manage to get the drop on their opponents. Combine these things, and somebody can look unstoppable, making it easy to assume they must be cheating. Being good at a game doesn't necessarily mean the person is playing unfair, and I find it's best not to jump to that conclusion without some more solid proof. This understandably might make some of you rightly frustrated, as proof of hacking is hard to get if the hacker is at least a little bit smart. If they're running an aimbot, all they really need to do is disable it from time to time and it looks much less like they're cheating. If a player spawns themselves a minigun and marine armour in the first 5 seconds of a match, then you can be pretty certain they're hacking, but with nothing that clear-cut happening whilst I was playing, I honestly can't tell for certain how prevalent hackers are in Nuclear Winter. Fortunately for me, I have a bunch of followers who play Nuclear Winter, so I made sure to ask them. Here we have my Twitter poll, and you can clearly see that hackers are not a problem in the game. 2/3 of people have never seen hacking in Nuclear Winter, and a third have only seen it a few times. 0% had noticed a lot of hacking, so I think we can definitively say that there are virtually no hackers in the game. Alright, so obviously this isn't a reliable poll. It had 9 votes in total. That's an incredibly small sample size, and just goes to show how easily you can be led astray by bad polling. Let's instead look at a slightly better poll, the one I did on the community tab on my channel. This one received 461 votes before I got to this section of the script. It still is up and receiving more votes, but after being up for the best part of the day, I felt we had a large enough sample size to work with. To make the data easier to interpret and relate to, I've added how many people chose each option next to the percentages. For the question, how many times have you encountered hacking in Nuclear Winter? 35% of people claim to have never encountered hacking in the mode. This is reassuring to see, as it indicates that a significant portion of the community isn't having an issue with hackers at all. As a bit of a counter to this, I will say that it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if people who don't play Nuclear Winter voted never on the poll, due to them not playing the mode. I have actually seen this before in polls after all. Comments such as this one from Intelligent Alpaca Man, where he says, "I don't really play that much of Nuclear Winter, so I've never really seen anyone cheat," bring out the fact that you're much more likely to encounter hacking in any multiplayer game the more you play. Someone who plays for several hours every single day is much more likely to encounter an instance of foul play than somebody who only tried out the game one time. With that point covered, let's look at the number of players who did encounter hackers in the game. So the largest chunk was 15% of players who encountered hacking just a few times. This is what I personally expect for pretty much any multiplayer game out there. Most people aren't going to try to hack the game, but there will always be a few willing to go out of their way to get an unfair advantage. As long as that's in the minority, it shouldn't be too big of an issue, and that's what the numbers on this poll seem to indicate. After all, the next two options in the poll, a lot of times and nearly every match, each only got 5% of votes, totaling at around 50 people seeming to regularly have an issue with hackers in the mode. Although this is the smallest proportion of the poll, these people clearly aren't happy about hacking in the game. In the comments of that poll, I had multiple people saying things like, "Nearly every match I have played has had a hacker of some sort," "A hacker one-hit my entire team with a Gatling gun from 1 kilometre away," and "Almost all my friends stopped playing Nuclear Winter because of it." Even if there aren't many hackers in the game, if people are quitting the mode entirely because of them, then this is a problem. The final result of the poll is the largest. 39% of people unsure if they've encountered hacking in Nuclear Winter, and I think this is the most telling part of this survey. Even if you've not encountered hacking firsthand in the game, all it takes is the rumour of hackers in Nuclear Winter to make you question if you should play at all. I know I personally am put off playing the mode just from doing a little research into the whole subject. If you follow threads about possible hackers and see some of the reports people are giving, then it's easy to assume the game is constantly infested with nothing but hackers who win every single match by aimbotting. But of course it's going to seem bad if you just read all the reports of possible hacking. You end up in a bubble where all you hear about is the worst examples of the mode. If you've been paying attention to the footage that's been playing throughout this video, you'll see that I have plenty of encounters with no hackers involved, just standard fun firefights between players who are enjoying the game. Even though hackers in the game do almost certainly exist, they won't necessarily ruin the experience. If the player base is large enough, then a few hackers here and there wouldn't really be an issue, as you'd very rarely encounter them. Problem is, the player base for Nuclear Winter is pretty small, at least on PC. In the 5-hour play session I did earlier this week, we peaked at 32 players in a match. I want to quickly point out as well, this was a Tuesday night I was playing through, so not peak times, but definitely not what should be the lowest times either. I've taken a look through my footage, and back in June, I was playing a match with 50 other players, and nowadays I'm finding it's much more like half that number. With far fewer players in matches, any hackers present will be much more likely to be encountered over and over again, due to the limited number of players. You will almost certainly see the same names appear if you play regularly, and if you suspect someone is a hacker, and keep seeing their name appearing, not only in-game but also in online discussions about hacking, then you may wonder why it is Bethesda haven't banned them yet. That leads us onto our final section of this video, why Bethesda isn't banning hackers. First up, they are. Sometimes at least. I'm sure we all heard the story of the player who spawned a minigun into the Nuclear Winter lobby who got banned for doing so. That was a clear case of hacking that was widely reported, shared, and had overwhelming proof. With it being undeniable that the player had spawned in the minigun themselves, it was possible for the team to ban that person. Problem is that most cases of hacking aren't as straightforward to prove, and they have to be if action is going to be taken. You have to be able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that hacking has taken place, normally a video or multiple screenshots clearly showing everything. This can seem incredibly frustrating, but look at it from Bethesda's side. They could ban 100 players for hacking. 99 of them could be hackers, but if one of them wasn't, then a player just got their account removed for doing nothing wrong. This could then create a player who is rightly annoyed and goes online to vent about it. The story then gets picked up by a few news outlets, and all of a sudden, Kado and I are talking on the Pitcast about how Bethesda has started banning players on a whim, leading to an even worse reputation for the company and the game, something that none of us should want. It's a scenario which, honestly, sucks. Without rock-solid proof of hacking that's carefully examined before any action is taken, then hackers can use third-party software or modify game files to their heart's content. If you do want to send Bethesda proof of hacking, then the best way to do that is with a video recording. If you're on PC and have an Nvidia graphics card, then you can download Shadowplay, a free video recording software that can be set up to record the past 5 minutes of gameplay. Something that I find incredibly helpful just in general, but can be great for getting footage of people who are clearly hacking. There are similar ways to do stuff like this on console, so if you want to catch a hacker, look into how to record footage and you might just be able to stop them. Being certain that the player truly is hacking isn't an easy thing though. To help demonstrate this, I'm going to play you some footage here of me playing a match of Nuclear Winter from a couple of months back. You'll notice that there are no buildings, trees, or anything at all blocking my line of sight. All I can see is the ground, AI enemies, and other players. This may well seem like I'm hacking. After all, I can see players from miles away, and it truly does give my team an unfair advantage. Thing is though, I'm not a hacker. Something I hope is obvious to most of you. What happened here is the game had some weird glitch where it despawned all the textures for scenery for me. I then spent the next few minutes with my teammate trying to help me navigate my way around trees, shooting at houses, and then finally realising I should probably record some of it. Fallout 76 can be an incredibly buggy experience, which makes it all the harder to work out if somebody is actually hacking, or if they just happen to have run into a new bug. With all this in mind, I do believe hacking is a problem in Nuclear Winter. I don't think there are that many hackers out there, but it doesn't take many to ruin the experience for most of us. I'm seeing more and more people claiming they aren't going to play Nuclear Winter anymore because of hackers, and if player numbers keep dropping, then Nuclear Winter might end up going the same way as survival mode. So yeah, that's it for the video I guess. I feel like that ended much darker than I would have liked, so I would like to remind people that plenty of players seem to be having little to no encounters with hackers in Nuclear Winter, so it's certainly not an issue affecting everyone. I still do think it's important to open up a conversation about this kind of thing though, so feel free to share your own experiences in the comments, and tell us all whether or not you are still playing Nuclear Winter. I actually quite enjoy working on these kinds of videos where I do some background research and conduct polls of my own, so please also let me know if you enjoy this content by giving the video a like. If there's anything else about the game you want me to give an in-depth look at, feel free to ask me, either in the comments or on my Discord or Twitter, links to both in the description below. I'm also a YouTuber, so it's basically law for me to tell you to subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell, so please do those things if you want to watch all of my content. With all that said, there's only one thing left to say. As always, thanks for watching. Sarge out.